Hello, hello, everyone. We are live. Today's been a rough day for me, but we are getting through it. I pulled a muscle in my back. I finally got my back feeling good again, and then I freaking pulled a muscle in it. So I am going to be a little bit more stiff today, and hopefully medication and stretching will fix this because it is a pain in the butt to have a sore lower back, but we will see how that goes. Super excited about the live, and I'm also going out for karaoke tonight, so that should be fun. Hopefully my back can manage. Hello. I see you are sideways.
Am I sideways? Is it going to,
Yeah.
am I upside down if I do it this way?
Yes. It's like I'm talking to a vampire bat or something.
Ooh.
How are
Let
you doing
me
today?
see if I can't figure out a solution here because I've got to have the little charger
Yeah.
sticking under it. So I'm going to set up
A makeshift stand.
a makeshift stand here. There we
Okay.
go. That works. I'm
I
charging.
I've had pop sockets on the back of my phone and I like dangle it on the back of like my monitor sometimes to make it work when I've got to charge my phone during the live.
Oh, that's a good idea too. I've got
I
little David back here showing me up.
love it. I love the green and the gold. Like that's love that. That's really great.
Little doggy.
You got like the whole museum over there for us to kind of go through. There you go.
The Big
That
Penis 3D book.
that's the best to add to the collection there. I'll have to add that to my many books that I've got in the background of mine.
This is my my boyfriend's office.
Okay.
We just started dating about 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
and
He's already let you use his office.
I just found his 3D penis book. So
That's great. Awesome. Well, I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself so people kind of know who you are, and then we can jump into a discussion.
yeah, awesome. My name is Mark Adams Turnipseed. I go by Mark A. Turnipseed, and I'm the author of a book titled My Suicide Race: Winning Over the Trauma of Addiction, Recovery, and Coming Out. That book has, the development of that book has actually led me into the other titles that I now hold, which is both model, personal trainer, health and wellness coach, and now a small business owner of my own as well. I'm also a health and wellness columnist. And so I write a regular news column at the South Florida Gay News titled My Best Gay Self. And it's about, living when I came out, I honestly, there was a lot of things I didn't know about the gay world, but one of those was how to be gay and healthy, and how to be gay in a healthy, because I had just gotten sober too. And so I was really concerned about how to, live a life that was gay, but and still have fun, but also maintain my sense of values and my sense of purpose that I had found in sobriety. I'll tell you one thing, I couldn't have one without the other. And so I was determined to find a way. And I still am determined to find a way and to continue that. I have started that health and wellness column to both share with people the lessons that I'm learning, but also to continue to learn and engage myself in, some of the new concepts as they arise, like dating, how to date in the gay world. And it's a whole different, you wouldn't think it's too much different, but it is. It's a lot different. Roles are different, everything. How to conduct myself at the gym, I mean, everything like started to seem so like I never had thought about some of the complexities that gay men face, gay men, women, everyone faces. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, awesome. I think you touched on so many amazing things. And I think that one thing that I've learned even doing these positive talks is just kind of sharing your experience. You start to realize that there's a lot of people out there in that same boat where they're trying to make sense of everything. And when it comes into jumping into the LGBT thing, like I think it's something that a lot of people don't realize that it does take some processing. It does take some figuring out, mainly because there's a lot of stereotypes that come with the community. There's a lot of things. I mean, for the longest time, our community had to hide who we were. So when it comes to places that LGBT people can go and meet, it's not too long ago that the bars were really the only safe place for gay people to meet. So sobriety was something that you didn't really see a lot of in the LGBT community because that's where all your friends are going. That's also where people go to kind of let loose and kind of let their
Yeah.
guard down. And sometimes alcohol and other substances were there to kind of help along the way. And it's definitely not easy to jump into that scene. I remember when I first came out and my boyfriend was taking me to places, and my family has a lot of like addiction in it. So for me, like I was very certain that I did not want to drink, but it also made other people feel like I was judging them because I didn't want to, but it was more to protect myself, and I didn't care what everyone else was doing. I was going to have fun no matter what. But it was definitely a journey to get to where I was there and feeling comfortable and not making other people uncomfortable for me to kind of choose what I wanted to do, which was different than what they were wanting to do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get that question a lot from especially new from people who I personal train and health and wellness coach. They often don't come to me with addiction problems, but they do come to me. Actually, I've never had anyone come to me with addiction problems. And if they do, I send them to or refer them to counselors and to drug and alcohol treatment. But I do get a lot of times somebody will be personal training with me for a couple of months and going through my health coaching stuff. And then after a couple months, they'll be like, I have found that I kind of have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I would like to reassess my relationship with alcohol, but how do you do it? How do you go out to dinner with your friends and just not have a drink? And it's a very daunting thing at first. What are people going to think? And not only what, if you're not one of those people who even worry about what people think, and you're more, what's the impact going to be on other people? How are they going to feel? Is this going to make people feel uncomfortable that I'm not drinking while everyone else is? Both are completely legitimate fears to have before going to that table. And it's just a different personality, I think, that has those two different types of fears. But ultimately, what it really comes down to is that those people, they really don't care if you drink or not. Like, that's what I tell people. It's like generally the only people who really care if you're drinking or not are are the people who want you to drink around them so that they feel better about their drinking, so that they feel better about their behaviors. And the people who don't care, those are your real friends. You'll be able to tell. And then all of a sudden you may lose a handful of friends, but you're not really losing friends. You're actually just, you know, opening up opportunity for new people who actually care in your life about more than just your drinking.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you kind of overcame something that you were like battling, and then you've made strides to do a lot of really amazing things with your life currently. It sounds like you're a very busy person. So when it comes to kind of coming out on the other side, I know that that's not always the easiest to keep running, in that direction, sometimes there's things that will try to pull you back. Like, do you think that the things that you are now doing, whether it's with like the fitness or whether it's with like the writing and all of that, do you think that that's been something that you've been using to kind of keep yourself moving in the forward momentum?
I think it does help. I think it is definitely a one of the tools in the momentum machine that's behind me. I don't think it's the only thing because sometimes, those things are not really existent. Like for instance, with the writing of the My Best Gay Self, I actually let's rewind. Like the writing of the Trials to Triathlon and the My Suicide Race, that came about the same way. Basically, I decided that I needed to finally figure this sober thing out. I had been trying for about 15 years and failing miserably. I mean, I had 4 DUIs at this point. I had multiple drug charges. I was suicidal. I've had many overdoses and many different rehab centers, and I was just at the end of the road, and I was like, I have got to figure something out. I don't really know why. It almost seems divine, but I started training for a triathlon. I hopped in the pool, and then the next thing I knew, I'm sitting next to this guy in a sauna who says, I train for a triathlon. And I look at him with my like ridiculous judgmental eyes, and I'm like, there is no way this guy did a triathlon. Like, the only people who do triathlons are like outrageous superhuman athletes. And I was like, this guy is definitely not one of those. Well, I'll tell you one thing, triathlon will humble you. And same with sobriety. A lot of times you look at somebody, you say, you no way you've done this. But they have. And when I sat there next to that man and heard that he had done something as great as a triathlon, I go, man, maybe I can too. And so the next thing I knew, I was signing up for an Ironman triathlon and I started training for it. And when I was training for it, I started to write about it. And the writing really did help. So, writing about how it was helping me with my sobriety, it really did help to increase my motivation. On days that I really didn't want to go, I knew that I needed to experience that low and find out what could be an element that continued to drive me even when I didn't want to do it, right? And so, that writing did actually help propel me, but it wasn't the only thing. There were a lot of other things in my life that I had set up that were also driving forces in that. Sobriety being one of those. I paired my sobriety with my fitness and with and with my general health, and so it really became something greater. And as it became something greater, I didn't even need motivation for it at some point. And I think that's where we end up after many years of just being consistent and plunging ourselves into it, because what ends up happening is that the lack of motivates us to get more of, right? Instead of like, if like when I had been on the couch for 15 years just drinking and doing heroin, I had absolutely no motivation to do anything at all. Like, I had no motivation to train for a triathlon. But now that I've been training, for 4 years, it's a little bit different. If I without it, the lack of, training, that is enough to motivate me to get going. And so, for those people who have yet to start, it is very difficult to start, but once you get that momentum going, and it only takes putting a couple of different extra things out there that help when they combine to create that higher purpose in your fitness, in your health. once those things combine and it starts to flow and the momentum starts to happen, um, it doesn't, it becomes a weightless journey, you know?
Yeah. I think that moving forward in life, you definitely have to like go through it with the intentions of moving towards something. And I think that it sounds like you found a lot of different things to kind of set up, and you intentionally made sure that you put things in place that would help you in ways that you knew. Because I think a lot of times we look at other people and we try to model their journey when we see that they've achieved something that we want to achieve. But sometimes it's really important for us to realize that something that might work for me might not necessarily work for you. And it's really important to like look inward and understand yourself better than anyone else on this planet. Because when it comes to saving yourself, when it comes to the journey that we're all on, like something that might trigger me and send me down the wrong path might be something that you walk right by and it does nothing to you. And I think that a lot of people, I love that you said that you send people to like someone professional to kind of help them with like what they're struggling with, because you went through something to help you and there were certain things that really did work for you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that tool specifically would be helpful to the next person that comes to you. And I think that the more people are aware of that, like you really do kind of have to know yourself. And I love that you kind of found something that like moved you forward, but you also like wrote about it. Like I think that writing is a beautiful thing, because sometimes when your mind isn't in the best of headspace, like the writing that you did when you were in a better headspace is something to really reflect on, and
Hmm.
it can really pull you back up. I mean, my positive talks, my YouTube videos, everything that I've done, like it's crazy to go back on those when I need advice, to be given advice from my past self that was sitting there in a better space than I am currently. And I think that more people could really benefit from doing stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, I'm sorry about the current situation with your back.
Yeah, it's rough. I'm sitting here like trying to like adjust my chair so that it's like in the perfect spot, but like it, I guess that's a part of getting old. You can't just like quickly bend over and not expect your body to sometimes not love you so much for doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I actually that's my well, I pulled my back out right before I started training for a triathlon, and that was one of the things where I go, dear God, I needed to, and yes, I even now I pull my back out occasionally just bending in the wrong way. Um, but I remember feeling that and going, okay, I either have to go this way or just go back that way. And I was just like, I'm going to start doing little sit-ups in the morning. You know, I'm going to start trying to like get myself into shape. Otherwise, I'm going to start going way downhill really fast. I mean, my couch, okay, the couch that I got sober on was slanted in a certain direction because I laid on that sucker that much,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
I was working from home from like the pandemic for most of the year that the pandemic had closed everything. And I was sitting in my bed working on my laptop. And I
Ooh,
noticed that my mattress has like a little place where like I was sitting. And it was such an unnatural position for my spinal cord right there to be sitting, that I realized that that probably created some longer lasting impacts to my lower back. But as soon as I kind of set up a desk area, got a good chair that had good back support, like it started to get better. It
good,
was
good.
fine.
Yeah.
I even gave my sister, who was experiencing some back pain earlier, like this year, I gave her all my stuff that was for my back before. And I'm like, dang it, I need it again. I don't have it here.
Yeah, yeah, a good back support chair is wonderful. My boyfriend's office chair could use a little bit of help. So tell me, where are you at?
I'm currently in Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia. Okay.
Yeah. Just moved here not too long ago. I I actually just did a YouTube video that's going to be uploaded and going out tomorrow for people to watch. It's kind of like an update of everything that I've been doing. I moved to Richmond mainly because like it was a constant battle for me to be where I was. One, being LGBT in rural anywhere is not fun. You constantly have to fight for your space to speak and just live the way you want to live without being told that it's not okay. And then not having internet and connectivity and networking ability where I was, like no one was doing what I wanted to do. When I talked about content creating, when I talked about coaching, people kind of looked at me like I was crazy. So moving to a city was good on so many levels for me. It is taking some getting used to because I'm so used to very fresh air. And here in Virginia, they just legalized weed. So like everything just smells like it. And for me, like that kind of gives me a headache. So I've got like an air purifier and I literally just don't breathe when I walk out of the doors because there's always just a puff of smoke there. But for me, I'm just kind of getting used to not really having my own personal space and learning how to create personal space, even though there's loud noises and people all around me 24/7. Because even during some of my positive talks, like my neighbor, I can hear her kind of on the phone with people. So like I'm like, I'm going with it. I'm making the best of the situation and just learning and absorbing as much as I can while I'm here.
Yeah, where was it before Richmond?
I was in the middle of nowhere in the Blue Ridge Mountains. There's a ski resort called Wintergreen Resort, and I was very close to that. And like, there was just no service where I lived. Like when I went home, I literally told everyone, I'm like, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow
Oh,
because
funny.
I'm going home and I have no cell service at home. So it was very different. The only thing that I'm really missing is like the fresh air and the stars that you can
Yeah,
see. Like you don't see stars here in Richmond.
yeah. Well, yeah, I'm coming from Montana all the way down to, South Florida. Um, and it's very populated down here. It's intense. But I'll tell you one thing. So living, it's something that I have just started to experience. Like, yes, I came out in rural Colorado. I was living in Colorado at the time. And I came out there and I found myself driving into Denver quite frequently just to be surrounded by other gay people to, get to know what the lifestyle and what the different and honestly just so that I could like hug another guy, just so I could be there and be like, "Hey, what's up? My name's Mark. Let's have a hug." I thought that that was just I mean, just the most refreshing thing ever to me, honestly, was the first time that I was in a gay bar and I rubbed up shoulders against another guy. And instead of jerking back and being like, "Oh, you just touched me, dude, get off of me," there was none of that. We looked at each other and we gave each other a hug. I thought that was the most wonderful thing. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is what I've wanted my entire life. And I just wanted more of it, right? And so from Montana, from Colorado, then it was down to Asheville, North Carolina, and I was living there for about 10 months. And it was basically COVID the whole time that I was there. And the modeling thing started to pick up for me, which was completely mind blowing to me. I had no idea. I had no dream of that. I didn't get into fitness at all to get my body in shape. I did it all for just some peace of mind, just to find like, I really did it to prove to myself that I could. And every single morning it was, I need to prove to myself that I can run this so that I can stay sober. Like, I just want to prove to myself that I can actually do something. And I did it. And I was like, wow. Well, one of the fruits of my journey was that people started reaching out and say, you should be a model. And then that has brought me down to South Florida. And I moved to Boca Raton, which is north of Miami. And it's north of Fort Lauderdale. My boyfriend lives in Fort Lauderdale. And I find myself, Fort Lauderdale is like a gay mecca of the United States. It is absolutely unbelievable. It's so dreamy being down here. I mean, I moved to Boca and I thought that I had it made. I was like, yes, I'm down in South Florida. Like, there's some sprinkles of gays here. But then I started seeing my boyfriend in Fort Lauderdale and spending quite a bit of time down here. And I'm like, okay, wait, maybe I can get a little bit gayer. Because you're right, like being surrounded by that community where you just feel safe to express yourself. I was walking around in these sunglasses that my business partner gave me. They're actually his mom's sunglasses. I was driving his car and I didn't have sunglasses. And and he was like, "Here, wear these." And I put them on and I was like, you know, down in Fort Lauderdale, I feel just fine wearing these sunglasses. But up here in Boca, I feel like people look at me differently. And it's so very true. Like just being able to express yourself, um, is a wonderful gift that our community has these days that it didn't have before. And I find it very interesting that you brought up like the historical reasoning for us viewing gays as stereotypically in the bars was because that really was the only safe place for us. Well, now we don't really have that excuse anymore, and now I think that you sharing that gave me a higher purpose to continue to spread my message that it is safe to be gay and be healthy. It is okay to be gay and not snorting meth, right? It is okay. It's okay to even be gay and not do poppers. Like, it's okay. Of course, it's also okay to do some of that stuff if you can do it responsibly. Um,
Yeah.
but if you're like me, there was no responsibility there, and it is okay. And and it's not only okay, but it's safe. Like there's communities, there's places that we can be where it is safe, you know.
Yeah, for me, like I've done a lot of content out there to kind of let the LGBT community know that like the stereotypes that are placed on our community, and when you go out and you find other LGBT people, just be aware like it is perfectly okay to make your own path when there's not one that feels like it fits you well. And like when it comes to a lot of the things that people in the gay community experience, like I literally do trauma coaching for LGBT. So like I work with LGBT people who have dealt with trauma, whether it's from the gay community itself or from society or from like their hometowns, their family, their friends, their churches, all the different things that can cause trauma in the LGBT community. And I started creating content just saying the things that I wish someone had told me when I had first come into the community. I wish someone told me, like, you don't have to feel bad that you don't want to drink, because in that way, I felt like I was completely singled out and I was alone in that, because all my friends that I had at the time, that's where I hung out with them, was the gay bar or at their house parties where there was drinking, where I was always the only one not drinking. And if I had taken the time to communicate that with my friends, I would have found out that they weren't judging me for that. Like they loved having the DD, they loved having someone that was sober to like make sure they got home okay. And now I talk to them about that type of stuff and they're like, "Yeah, we always had so much respect for you." But at that time, I didn't feel that way. I just felt like everyone looked at me, and there were some comments that were thrown around where people were like, "Oh, someone's better than the rest of us." And that is what I encompassed the whole community as. Whereas it was funny, during the pandemic, I bought some board games, and some of my friends that I hung out with all the time, and they always drank every single time. And a lot of them were like falling off onto the not so great side of drinking alcohol everywhere they went. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just suggest this and see if they would be interested. And I was like, what if we did a board game night with no alcohol? Like, what if we just did this
Mm.
and there was just no alcohol involved? And all of them were like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Let's do it. And it was just someone putting it out there saying, hey, like, what if we just didn't do alcohol this time? And there are so many people out there that just do it because they think that's what is expected, or they think that that's how everyone else is. And sometimes it just takes someone saying, "Hey, like let's not do it this time." And it kind of sets off that chain and ripple effect of other people saying, "That was really fun. Like, want to do it again next week? Let's do it every week."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you kind of see people in a different light, but sometimes you have to give them that opportunity to kind of have that moment with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I, I think that there's a lot of fear with a lot of, I mean, with myself, that moment is very similar to that moment of, and I'm working on this in my own life right now. Um, that moment of silence, that moment of being okay, with yourself in a room with no TV, no phone, no music, just okay with silence. Um, I really have learned in sobriety to appreciate that, but I realize that not everybody needs sobriety to be able to appreciate that. But I think that there's something that is in that moment that is very similar to that time when you're sitting around the table, you're playing a board game, nobody's drinking, and you have those moments of silence. Like, I think that there's serious growth that occurs when we experience those moments. And yeah, I've been trying to find ways to increase that type of development and that challenging experience in my life, and it's added to the positivity in my life tenfold. Um, I don't know about your experiences with that, with mindfulness, with meditation, with you know, peace, with being alone and being quiet. I think that was for a lot of us in COVID. That was such an important thing to either come to or lose our minds over, right? And so some of us were forced to it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think an interesting thing, like, because for you, you talk about like sobriety and kind of having that like moment of silence there. I think that a lot of people during COVID, people who in normal times we thought were perfectly fine, they seemed to have their life together, but they had other vices that were in place to kind of control their life in a way that when the pandemic hit and just kind of erased all of those things, whether it was going out and shopping, a lot of people spend money to kind of remove themselves from negative feelings, and that got taken away from a lot of people. Hey, yeah, for me, like Barnes and Nobles was a place that I like. I mean, you can see my room. Like, there are so many books here. Like, when that pandemic hit, I was like, how am I going to buy books? I'm like, Drummond, you don't need books. You have 300 boxes of books that you haven't read yet. Pick some up. So I think that shopping was definitely one of my things. And then also just like the small communications with complete strangers out and about. Like, sometimes I would just drive and go places just to bump into strangers and communicate. And all those things started falling away. And I started realizing that I had a lot of things that I was using as distractions to avoid listening or talking to myself and paying attention to those thoughts, because sometimes they would take me to a darker place. And instead of going to that dark place and understanding it and healing it, I was just doing whatever I could to avoid it, whether it was going on dates with people, whether it was hanging out with friends. Like, there were certain times where I would get really upset with friends because they didn't have time to hang out with me. And that meant that I had to hang out with me. And that wasn't always the best place for me to be, because when I start thinking, I was just going into this dark place. And yeah, the pandemic taught me a lot that sometimes you have to go there into that silence and allow yourself to listen to the thoughts that you have, because I also think that we allow our environment to create our identity for us, whether it's the people that we reflect onto, or the things that we reflect onto when we're out in public. And when you took that away, it was like, who am I? Like,
Yeah.
what is my real identity if you take everything environmental away? That technically isn't who I am. That's just me projecting onto it to kind of create an image that I want the world to see. So the pandemic definitely opened my eyes to a lot of that.
Another thing to bounce off of that a little bit is that the thoughts that we experience about ourselves and the thoughts that we feel, they are also not us, you know? That's also not me. Those dark places that I go to in my head, those aren't me. That's not who I am, And I need to be able to experience that and continue to experience that so that I can gain mastery over it. So that when everything on the outside goes against me, and it does. There are days when everything seems to go against my agenda, everything, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that there's seasons where it seems like every single day of that season goes against me, Well, it's in those times that if I am not equipped to handle the dark thoughts that come into my head, that I could very well snap and I could very well find myself back where I was with a needle in my arm very quickly if I did not learn to recognize that these thoughts, that these feelings in the silence are not me. They're not. There's something else that defines me.
Yeah. I think that when we're dealing with trauma, a lot of people don't realize that some thoughts have been put in their head by their environment, whether it's a negative environment or just in comparison, we can do that to ourselves. But like for me, I came to a lot of thoughts and really like when it said, I'm not worth this, I'm not worthy of this, I sat there with that thought and I was like, why would I would never say that to someone else. Why am I saying it to myself inside of my head? And I had to unpack those thoughts. And a lot of times it came to something someone said a long, long time ago. And I just allowed that thought to be there. And I allowed it to kind of just root into my thoughts in lots of different ways. And it took me looking at it and saying, you're that's not the truth, like that's not me, because for a long time I thought that I needed recognition from people around me. I needed more people to tell me that I was worth something, because inside my head I didn't believe that. And I was getting people that, like celebrities that I looked up to for years. I was having people that, like professors and CEOs of companies, telling me that I was an amazing person, and I still didn't believe it. So it made me realize that there wasn't a person on this earth that could tell me that I was worth something, as long as I allowed that thought inside of my head to exist there.
Yeah.
Because as long as that was sitting there, like I couldn't accept any of their compliments or any of their truths about me when they were looking at me, because I allowed that other thought to just keep cycling through, and it was like erasing everything that they were saying.
Yeah.
And that was an important one for me to realize.
I had a similar experience too, where I, um, believed the exact opposite of what everybody had told me. Not everybody, but what the people who mattered most in my life, the people who loved me. I really did not listen to them, and it was largely because of what I believed about myself. Until I was standing on that bridge the morning after I tried to jump in the frozen river and kill myself, but was unable to do so because I was so wasted that I couldn't climb over the railing. And this was after two prior suicide attempts in that week. And I looked at my phone and I saw all these messages from various people saying, Mark, we love you. Mark, you're beautiful. Mark, you don't deserve this. And I decided, like, something just clicked in that moment where there was no more option anymore to listen to this other thing that had been telling me that I'm not worthy, that I'm dirty, that I'm useless, that I'm worthless. There was, I couldn't listen to it because finally I go, I am just going to listen to what these other people are saying about me who care. Because this voice obviously doesn't get it. Like, you know, it's gotten me all the way into addiction, it's gotten me into suicide attempts, it's destroyed other people's lives. It is obviously a lie, right? I was just so convinced that there was something that these people over here were saying that had an inkling of truth that I just started running with it. You know, I started going, you know what? Fuck it. I don't believe I'm beautiful, but I'm going to act like I'm beautiful. I don't believe that I'm strong, but I'm going to the pool tomorrow morning and I'm going to train like a freaking triathlete because people say that I'm strong. I don't believe that I can go through with this, but I'm just going to do it every single day and I'm going to see what happens. And sure enough, you know, it started to happen, you know, and I started to um, come off to others as beautiful. And I started to succeed in triathlon and succeed in business and my writing and everything, you know, it was just um, sometimes sometimes we gotta not listen to that voice inside of our head, which is counter, you know, what I remember hearing in school is like, don't listen to what other people say about you. Well, I should have listened to what some other people were saying about me.
Yeah. So now that you are here at this time in your life, like, and you have done modeling and you are writing and you are doing the fitness stuff, do you believe that, or is that still things that you have to struggle with and try to accept, or are you still listening to other people and just going off of the beliefs that they are right and that voice in your head wasn't?
I believe it. I believe it now, but that doesn't mean that I don't slip out of it occasionally and find myself in the dark grime of my closet, just like, ugh, I don't feel beautiful today. You know, that does happen. But luckily at this point, you know, there are various different tools and various different ways that I know that if I just do this next thing that's in front of me, that I will slowly start feeling better. And if even if everything goes wrong for the rest of the day, if I continue to do my best at the next thing that I can control and that I can do, then I'm going to lay my head down and I'm going to feel beautiful and I'm going to feel worthy and I'm going to feel accomplished and successful. Now, if I wake up in the morning and I feel grimy and I go just like, oh, I'm just worthless, that does happen. That can happen just not even because of a dream. That can just happen because I woke up on that side of the bed. Well, I know the first thing that I have to do, well, the first thing I have to do is make coffee. And if I don't make coffee, then I'm probably, you know, so I go and I make my coffee. And I do it also, I do it mindfully, right? I do it like I pay attention to it. I smell the coffee beans. I make a routine. I make a ritual. I enjoy it. That very first thing I enjoy, right? And then right after that, I always go and make my bed, right? And if I don't make my bed, even if I'm still feeling icky and grimy inside, if I don't make my bed, then I'm going to feel ickier and grimier. But if I do make my bed, then I'm going to feel a little bit more successfuler, a little bit better, right? And
Yeah.
so the next thing I do after that is I brush my teeth and I do it all mindfully. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to like really pay attention to brushing my teeth, enjoying this, and same with the bed. Just pay attention to my pillows. I may be running late, but it doesn't can matter right now, right? I have to get my life straight. And I mean, that's kind of like what some days entail is just doing the next thing, which is as simple as making a bed and brushing teeth. And then after that, the next thing is just the next thing. You know, It may be that I have to do my financial budget. It may be that I get to go to the gym. It may be that I have to, write up a article for the paper. It may be something else. But it is the next thing, and it's no different from brushing my teeth. And then if I continue to add those things up, by the end of the day, I always feel what those people had told me, you know. I always feel that person. But if I don't do those things and I do slip all over those things, then I'm not that I don't really know because I haven't had one of those days in a long time. I'll tell you that. I haven't let myself have those days because I know exactly where those days take me. You know, it takes me into fitless rage all night. I can't sleep. I used to have to take sleeping medicine. I took sleeping medicine and anti-anxiety medicine on top of opioids, on top of drinking in order to go to sleep. Like you could put out three elephants with that. That's the only way that I would sleep. And then I would wake up in the middle of the night unable to sleep. And it was because my life was just filled with all these little incomplete things that I wasn't actually standing up for myself and doing. One of which was finally coming out. I wasn't finally standing up for myself and who I actually was. And now I just know that it's a slippery slope down a long, dark wormhole if I don't do those very little things.
Yeah. I
Sorry, I keep having little notifications come up, and it's so annoying. So
you're
I,
perfect.
I have to flick them. I'm one of those people with notificate. Like I keep my closet clean, right? I keep my freaking dishwasher is clean. Like I said, I like to have my stuff in order and organized, and I like to have my bed made. And I also don't like to have a notification that sits there with a bubble that says you have one. I hate seeing that. I have to
Oh,
click it and I have to get rid of it.
yeah. I'm the exact same way. Like if I'm laying in bed and like I put my phone across the room because I can get very distracted from my phone. But like if I hear it vibrate, like my brain goes, "Oh no. What if it's something important?" And
Yeah,
like I'm the same way like when people send little questions here, there's like a little red dot on my side of the screen and I have to like touch it because I don't like seeing that red dot. I had to turn off uh my email notifications on my phone to where like it just doesn't show me notifications because
yeah,
seeing that I was constantly getting on my phone and diving into something that wasn't the task I was trying to complete at that moment. And I absolutely love what you were saying about like just doing the next thing because I've had those days. I think a lot of people see positive talks, they see my smiling pictures and the things that I do, but they don't realize how much work I've done to create an environment and a flow for myself to where I can be doing these things on a daily basis, to where I can function at a higher level when I need to. And it's because of all those different things. Like there are days like shower, super important for me. I don't drink coffee, but like a shower, like if I miss my shower, like my whole day starts to seem like it's blah. It all blends together, and I all I can think about is the fact that I haven't showered. So like once I get the shower, and like you with your coffee, like I allow myself to stand there and feel the shower, like the heat of the water, and then like the drying off, which has been a struggle with my sunburn on my shoulders here recently. But like I just love a shower, and that's kind of like brings me to the right state of mind, no matter how groggy I am in the morning. And then even after that, like there's days where that doesn't just solve my problems for the day. And I just have to be like, okay, now I've got to check all my emails for work. I'm just going to do that, going to get through all of them, and then I'll move on to the next thing. And
yeah,
that's a great thing to do because it is a slippery slope for anyone. Like we can fall into a slippery slope of sitting and watching Netflix all day, scrolling through TikTok or Instagram all day. And really, at the end of the day, you don't feel as accomplished because you don't go, wow, I spent 6 hours on TikTok today. Like, that's nothing that anyone sits there and like pats themselves on the shoulder for, unless they're a creator creating and posting something after 6 hours of working on it. But I think that the more things that you can put on your to-do list where you know it's going to make you feel like complete or like you've obtained some type of victory for that day, like it does build off of the things that you keep doing.
Yeah, and it can be little small successes. And I also got to say too, like, I talk about the successes a lot, but then there's a lot of failures, and there's a lot of slips, and there's a lot of those, like you see on my Instagram, you see me working out at the gym. Well, you don't see me not working out at the so like the other day, right? You didn't see the tears that came out of my face when everything was going so miserably hard that day. And I got to the gym to go for my swim, and I didn't have any more goggles. My goggles were disappeared, and there was no way that I could swim. And it was like, for some reason I just broke down, and I cried, and I was like, why, I couldn't do it. And but I didn't take a picture of it, you know, but it is, I mean, everybody experience, like we experience those. And I also experience days where I don't make my bed. I experience days where I'll go, the first half of the day where I haven't marked off those things. But here's the beautiful thing about the human experience is that at any point in the day, we're able to find it, ground ourselves, and reset it. At any point in the day, we can always take a reset. And so that's what I did with the swimming. I took a reset, and then I went and worked out. I just went and lifted weights. And I was like, whatever. Why was I crying? Like, I can't believe that I just did that, you know? So there's always a chance to reset. And when that happens, we also practice one of the most important, I think, characteristics of any successful person is um, the skill and the strength of self-compassion. Being compassionate to ourselves allows us also to be compassionate and kind to other people. And ultimately, when we have that aura inside of us and outside of us, then we get to start changing the world, one breath at a time. And it's a beautiful place to be. But it does start to happen by just being compassionate with yourself. Um,
Yeah. I I think that a lot of people don't realize that they give themselves too much to the people around them and then they didn't save anything for themselves. But the experience that you create in the world, when you are compassionate towards yourself, you create an energy around you that others feed on naturally that's not draining to you as a person. You just are putting out so much energy in a good way, whether it's just like someone else had a rough day or maybe they spilt their coffee on you, but you had took the time to be compassionate towards yourself to where the energy that you have when they spilt their coffee on you, yeah, that sucks, but you're not going to blow up on them. You have
yeah,
the compassion to share back to them and be like, it's no big deal. I've spilt coffee on myself. And in doing that, you created an interaction that didn't create any damage towards them. Of course, they will probably leave that situation where they're beating themselves up for spilling coffee on another person, but you didn't need to add to that for them to experience that guilt of doing that to someone. And
my favorite place to practice that is the road. I love it.
yes, yes, I've been in cars where people scare me when they don't practice any type of compassion. And I'm the type of person like if there's no one even behind me, like I'll let someone pull out in front of me, or if like when traffic is merging because of road construction, like I've been in cars where people and they're like, F that, you're not merging in front of me. And I'm like, how is letting one car merge in front of you setting you any further back in life than just showing a little bit of compassion and saying, hey, you can get in front of me? And honestly, like the other day I was riding around Richmond and there was this little kid just hanging out of like this tourist trolley that apparently goes around here, and he was waving to everyone. And I was watching people's facial expressions. I was behind him for probably 4 miles, but like everyone's facial expressions were just like, and these were people on the side of the road in their cars everywhere, and they were just like so into the zone of what they were doing. And as soon as he was like waving and screaming hi to them, like a huge smile just came out on their face, and they're like
Mm.
waving and smiling. And like I was like still a little bit further, and I could see like them turning and smiling to the people that they were with, and it was just like this infectious like positive energy that this kid was just adding to the city of Richmond that day. And I was like,
Oh,
look how easy that was. Like,
yeah.
it didn't take anything, and he was enjoying himself too. And when people didn't see him, like he didn't stop. He just went to the next person and was waving to them. And I think that that's a beautiful like energy to have. And I think more people need to realize that we all have that energy, even on bad days. Like
Yeah.
wave and do that.
We all have it. It's always a choice.
Yeah, and I mean, even on my really bad day this year where I found out that I lost my job, like you talked about like a reset, like that was really bad news in the middle of my day. And I was like, okay, reset. Like I'm not going to focus on work or anything that I was planning on doing for the day because I wasn't going to do it well because my mind was not in a healthy spot at that moment. I was like, what can I do to just kind of reset this place that I'm in right now? And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go and have lunch with my old coworker, and because she always cheers me up, I'm going to just hang out with her and just reset my mindset because I did still have a positive talk that day,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm not canceling positive talk because this adds so much to my life that I knew that that was something that was necessary, and I was just like, I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to share that this day sucked. This
Yeah.
wasn't a fun day for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to put on a smile and be like, "Oh, everyone, my day's so great." I was just like, "Yeah, today wasn't the greatest, but this my positive talks are things I really enjoy, so I'm gonna do it." It's not, it might not be the best energy ever, but I was super excited to do it. And after that, hanging out with my friend and doing the positive talk, I went home and I wasn't in the best of spirits, but I went home and played video games with my nephew, and I didn't allow that to impact anything else in my day.
Good.
Uh, but it's very important to realize that at any time you can reset. I always tell
Yeah.
people like New Year's resolutions, do them any day. Like don't wait for January. Like don't set future goals. Like just start right now. Put
Yeah.
your foot down and start.
Yeah. It's not just the thing that happens in a day. It can happen in a lifetime too. You can say, I'm just resetting my life now. It's just, it's as simple as that. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. Well, I will say, this positive talk has been wonderful for me. I had a tough day as well. Started at like 4 o'clock in the morning, did some modeling, and modeling shoot went well, but then everything else went like everything else was just loopy and just didn't fit together well. But there were little small successes. And then to top it off with this positive talk has made me feel wonderful. I don't have a niece or nephew to go play video games with, but I uh, I do have some greatness in the mix for this evening. So I
Awesome.
really appreciate you having me on. This has been a wonderful chat, and I appreciate all the little comments down here. You guys have both made me laugh and inspired me at the same time. Um,
Yeah, I want to just say thank you for coming on and doing this positive talk. I knew that you were up that early because I posted the poster on my story at that time and you shared it like pretty instantly. So I was like, wow,
yeah,
he's still up. But I'm glad that it could add something good towards the end of your day. And I just want to tell you that like your story is definitely inspiring. I reached out to you and wanted you to be on this because I knew that there was a lot of value in what you would have to say. And I think that you being your authentic self and you being open about being a work in progress, I think that you are sharing that with the world, and it really does mean so much to the people around you, because when you've got people brave enough like you to stand up and share that about yourself, like that helps other people to take that stand in their own life. And I think that that is something that needs to be celebrated and recognized. So I'm glad you were able to jump on this live, and hopefully we'll stay in contact. I ordered your book on Amazon. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm super excited about reading it. It's got a really cool cover, and I mean, being on the opposite side of alcoholism, like I've always like wanted to kind of understand it more. So I think that it will be a really interesting read, and I love success stories that I can kind of share with people everywhere. So I'm super glad we were able to connect.
Me too. Thank you so much. And you have a wonderful, wonderful. Is it already Thursday? Huh.
Yes, yes, it is. I'm going to have a good weekend. Got camping all of next week. Hopefully
Oh,
my back
lucky.
heals by then, because sleeping on a tent with a bad back doesn't sound fun. So I'll be doing a lot of stretching until then.
Yes, do that. Do that. All right. Much
Awesome.
love. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.